writing this song, it kind of occurred to me that in all of the superhero stories, the hero's greatest nemesis is the villain that used to be his best friend. When you think about that, you think about how there's this beautiful moment in the beginning of a friendship where these people have no idea that one day they'll hate each other and try to really take each other out. I mean, that's really sad and terrible.
But
Hi besties, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. When Taylor Swift wrote the song My Tears Ricochet, she spoke at an interview and discussed how the song was about friendship. Even though the song appears to be about a breakup, she said it's about friendship and how when you first meet a friend, they are your best friend and you have rose-colored glasses on and you have no idea that in the end, 10 years down the line, you might be destroying one another and you can hurt each other because you know exactly how to hurt that person because you know all of their secrets. And that once you end, you'll go to lengths to make the other person look terrible. Knowing that the song itself is about friends destroying friends, it's quite ironic that this was a song that was selected by Sony, aka Blake Lively, for the film It Ends With Us. And that song by Taylor Swift was at the heart of the dispute about so much of what happened in the post-production of It Ends With Us in the dispute over creative control where Blake hijacked the film from Justin Baldoni, according to court records. And Taylor Swift's involvement in the film was not as clear to Justin Baldoni because Blake was using Taylor as leverage. And because Justin and Wayfair didn't have a direct connection to Taylor, they had to understand, was Taylor involved? Was Blake lying? How do we need to get these facts. We need to know what Taylor knew. And so they subpoenaed Taylor. And with the subpoena came some outrage because not only did they subpoena Taylor, but they also subpoenaed Taylor Swift's attorneys. And Taylor Swift's attorneys last week filed a motion to quash. They said that it was unnecessary. They had no relevant information. They didn't even know what they were looking for. It was unduly burdensome. They could get this information from Blake's team. And then Blake's team filed in and said, you can't get this information because it's privileged and you would be invading our privacy. And then they filed a letter, Blake's team, into the court in a completely different jurisdiction in New York, even though the motion to quash was filed in DC, and told the judge in New York, hey, judge, we're going to go quash the subpoena that you can do nothing about, which then got a response from Brian Friedman because in the letter that Blake's attorney sent, they basically told the court that Brian Friedman was seeking information that was irrelevant and doing it to basically harass people. Brian Friedman responded by telling the court that he was in good faith discussions with Taylor's attorneys at the time, and he was in hopes of obtaining information from them that may make the subpoena moot and the need to quash it irrelevant. He said that he was looking for information specifically regarding information he had received from a source connected to Taylor that had said and alleged that on February 14th, a source came to him from Taylor's camp, we don't know who, and let them know that Taylor had been threatened by Blake Lively and that Blake wanted Taylor to put out a statement of support for Blake after the Super Bowl, where Blake was not in attendance. And she wanted everyone to know that she and Taylor were still friends. And she threatened Taylor, apparently, allegedly, according to Brian Friedman, that if she didn't put out this statement, she would release 10 years of text messages between her and Taylor and destroy Taylor's life. My tears ricochet. Well, all that got struck and Blake's team rejoiced and called Brian Friedman abusive. The court scolded him and said he would not be sanctioned. But that did not stop Blake's team from filing for sanctions this week, even though the judge said he would not sanction them. Just a moment ago, The attorneys representing Taylor Swift filed a motion to withdraw their motion to quash and told the court that at this point, the request was moot, and they asked it to be withdrawn without prejudice. Venable attorney Douglas Baldridge filed this in court. Basically, he has withdrawn the motion to quash subpoena to produce documents because it has been withdrawn by the issuing party. In support of their notice, they say that on May 12th, they filed a motion to quash to produce documents. On May 21st, 2025, counsel for the Wayfair informed Venable verbally and in writing that Wayfair would be withdrawing the Venable subpoena, effectively rendering the motion to quash moot. Accordingly, because the Venable subpoena has been withdrawn by Wayfair, Venable withdraws without prejudice the motion to quash. Should Wayfair serve a new subpoena on Venable in the future, Venable reserves all rights to renew its motion to quash as applicable and or file a new motion to quash or for other relief in this action. Wherefore, because of the Venable subpoena has been withdrawn by Wayfair, Venable hereby withdraws its motion to quash the now moot Venable subpoena. So it's official. It has been withdrawn. Prior to the court document being filed in court, this was served on all parties, and this got leaked to the media via the Daily Mail, Page 6, and basically every outlet. There was numerous statements given. So let's kind of talk about why was it withdrawn. So the information is coming from either Justin Baldoni's side or Blake's side. And both sides, only one has gone on the record. The other is a source that's talking to Deadline and to Daily Mail, which appear to be the go-to places where people want to leak information. So here is what they claim is going on. Taylor Swift is apparently no longer in danger of being called as a witness. And it's because, why? He has withdrawn the paperwork seeking information from Swift about what she knew about her former friend Lively, her war with the actor. And the insider revealed the reason for the drastic move. So he withdrew the subpoena. And he said Justin's attorneys, Brian Friedman, dropped the request for the subpoena. And the reason for doing is very simple. They got exactly what they were seeking. He did kind of hint to the court that, like I said, they were in good faith discussions. And they said sending a subpoena to Taylor and Taylor's response has provided Baldoni's team with everything that they needed. Taylor stated that she was not involved at all, and that is in stark contrast to what Lively has said. Taylor's lack of involvement proves that Blake lied about several very important details in this case. Furthermore, the court now has information that is documented to show that Blake's attorneys did, in fact, threaten to leak Taylor's private texts. This is backed up by evidence. Wow. Taylor was always considered to be the smoking gun in this, and everyone is extremely pleased with the end results and the information it yielded. They got exactly what they were hoping for and much more. So they're claiming they now have documented evidence for court that backs up that Blake's attorneys threatened to leak Taylor's text messages. That's wild. They have to have it or they wouldn't put out that statement. And it's not even a statement, so it's an insider. So someone within the legal team is talking to Daily Mail, obviously. So Lively's team, of course, is gaslighting and ignoring that. And they say, we are pleased that Justin Baldoni and the Wayfair parties have withdrawn their harassing subpoena to Taylor Swift and her law firm. We supported the efforts of Taylor's team to quash these inappropriate subpoenas directed to her counsel, and we will continue to stand up for any third party who is unjustly harassed or threatened in the process. Remember how last week Taylor said that while publicly Blake was pretending that she was doing what was right for her and had her back, and she was manipulating the public, and privately she was threatening her? That's literally what just happened right there. She's again pretending like she was protecting Taylor, but she was really, in my opinion, protecting herself. Now, Taylor did issue a statement publicly last week, and she said she never set foot on the set of the movie. She was not involved in any casting or creative decisions, and she did not score the film. She never saw an edit or even made any notes on the film, and she did not even see It Ends With Us until weeks after its public release, and was traveling around the globe during 23 and 24, headlining the biggest tour in history. And she was one of 19 artists that licensed music, so she had no involvement. Apparently, a separate source told Page 6 that They didn't need the subpoena because apparently Taylor's team and Taylor handed over what they needed, thus making the subpoena moot. As Brian Friedman said was a possibility moving forward, that they were working in good faith with Taylor's side. So they have withdrawn the subpoena. And naturally, Blake's side is calling this a win because she's standing up for the friend that wants nothing to do with her. The biggest issues for Taylor Swift come at the end of the film or at the end of the post production when they were going through the editing. And if now they're saying that Blake lied about this and lied about Taylor's involvement, it's a way to poke holes in her credibility. So if she lied about Taylor, why couldn't she be lying about the sexual harassment? And if she lied about Taylor not wanting the composer and then we need to fire the composer if Taylor's going to license her song. I don't know, but Taylor's name came up on May 2nd in the timeline of relevant events. And in it, they said while Lively is holding the film hostage in the edit room, she is simultaneously selling the film's marketing by refusing to approve key materials, including the trailer release. With less than 3 months until the film's premiere, Sony becomes increasingly alarmed about the delay rollout of the trailer, a cornerstone of the promotional campaign. In a text exchange between Heath and Sony film executives, a Sony marketing executive who had just spoken with Lively, they inform Heath of Lively's still escalating demands. Lively will not approve the trailer release unless she is granted more time in the edit room with her personal editor. Adding to the pressure, she made a veiled threat implying that she might change her mind about reaching out to Taylor Swift to secure the use of My Tears Ricochet for the trailer if her demands are not met. And the text messages that are sent from the executive says, Jamie, I have blank on here too. Blank has gotten Blake to approve the trailer we want with our narration, the chair kick, the bruise, etc. And Blake is calling Taylor to approve the song. She, of course, just reached out saying she is asking for time with Blake, her editor. We know it was conditional on signing the contract, but asking if you will reconsider so Blake can release this trailer and Blake does not change her mind, recalling Taylor Swift. So it would appear that Blake weaponized Taylor Swift as a tool and misrepresented Taylor's involvement publicly in interviews, saying that Taylor was involved every step of the way with her through it all, helped her in so many ways, lent her song, guided her through so much, right? She used Taylor's editor, all of these things. She name dropped Taylor all throughout. And Baldoni's side or a source is claiming they got what they wanted, they got what they needed. Now there's evidence, and they prove that that Blake lied about Taylor. And they've got evidence now of the threats. I thought, it's interesting because, Taylor has not denied these threats, not one time publicly. She's had an opportunity to say a lot, and her reps have not. Instead, earlier today, another conversation came out, and it has to do with Taylor Swift, again, making it clear that she is done with Blake Lively. So about an hour before news drops that this subpoena was withdrawn, an exclusive comes out from Daily Mail, again, who seems to have all the intel these days, but Taylor is done. And the title is, I Wish I'd Never Met Blake, New Humiliation for Lively, as singer outs the glaring red flags she missed during their 10-year friendship. Here's what an insider told them about what's going on in Taylor's mind. Right now, if Taylor had one wish, it would be that she never met Blake. Although there have been good times during their relationship, the issues now concerning the Baldoni case have outweighed them. When Taylor looks back at their friendship, she realizes it wasn't worth all the stress Blake put her through. She can now see all the red flags that should have been a warning to her. Taylor had to tone Blake down all the time because she always wanted to be the leader of the pack. Taylor's relieved the relationship is over. She put up with Blake's antics for too long because she's a loyal friend. It took the "it ends with us" drama to finally get her to pull the trigger on it. And it's also understood that her boyfriend is out too. And it says Taylor and Travis are disgusted with Blake and Ryan and how they've tried to use Taylor in their fight against Justin Baldoni. They're vowing their break from the acting couple is permanent. Okay, did you hear that? Taylor are disgusted with how Blake and Ryan are using Taylor in her fight with Justin. Not that Justin's using Taylor. It's that Blake and Ryan are using Taylor. Have you seen Taylor Swift defend Blake one time during this process? No. Have you seen her put out an issue a statement defending Blake? No. She has spoken a lot about being used for clickbait, but not by who. They have zero interest in ever being friends again with them. They're done. Because of the way that the court is set up, anything that they have right now, as far as evidence that is not revealed in a court filing, whether it's in the complaint itself or a part of a motion for like summary judgment, or if something gets brought to the court in terms of like a motion to compel or quashing a subpoena, like we've seen, we don't know what is being produced in discovery. And we don't know, and we're not privy to the details beyond what's in the court complaint. And because the judge made a very specific rule in the very beginning that they were bound by Rule 3 when Blake's side issued a gag order, they're bound by the professional code of conduct when it comes to trial publicity. So we are not going to be able to see what is produced or given or provided until it shows up in a document in court. And it's because the lawyers that are representing the clients cannot speak about it. What a lawyer can state, according to the American Bar Association, in terms of a case are the claim, offense or defense involved, and except when prohibited by law, and the identity of the person involved. If information contained in a public record, so they can speak to what's in a complaint or in a motion, that an investigation of a matter is in progress, requesting a request for assistance in obtaining evidence and information necessary, a warning of danger concerning the behavior of a person involved when there is a reason to believe that there exists the likelihood of substantial harm to an individual or to a public interest. And that's for a civil case. A lawyer may make a statement that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial undue prejudicial effects of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. A statement made pursuant to the paragraph shall be limited to such information as is necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. So they can respond if Blake's side releases information that is adverse to them. But beyond that, they can't release anything that's not already in the record. So what we don't know is what's happening off record. And I have a lawyer that reached out to me that has been giving me some information that's been very helpful. And what they told me was that when we look at a lot of the motions that are being filed in court, part of the reason why they're putting so much on paper is because Judge Lehman said that they had to follow the guidelines of trial publicity. And if they didn't, they would get in trouble and he would move the court date up further. And he said he would sanction them, right? And so with these court filings, they're able to say things and put it in a public record. Thus, the attorney can then publicly discuss it. Okay. So if they want to say something about Baldoni, they can file a motion and put it on public record and then release a statement to people. But until they file that motion and they add that information, they can't say it. So until and when a motion is made about a summary judgment or some other document that comes up about Taylor Swift, what they produced, they cannot discuss. And what he's produced thus far relating to possible extortion or witness tampering or threats or any of that, he cannot disclose until trial. Also, we don't know what he's receiving on his end from other witnesses. We don't know what they're receiving from other cooperating witnesses because, again, subpoenas are only necessary if someone doesn't want to cooperate. If someone's willing to participate in discovery and speak to you, they don't need to be subpoenaed. They don't have to be compelled. Usually a subpoena is issued when someone doesn't necessarily be adverse to complying. So then they have to put it into a court order. But if you willingly agree to help and provide documents, no subpoena is necessary. And Blake's side then can't intervene. So if this was fruitful for them and it got them what they needed, good for them. If Justin's team is able to show that Blake mischaracterized information to them and lied to them about Taylor's involvement, there is question about her credibility as a witness. Other details and evidence that are currently involved in this case are also in question because when it comes to text messages that Blake Lively introduced into her evidence, which haven't actually been provided to the court, they're in a complaint, but text messages are actually hearsay unless the text message is between you and the party or you're the author of this document, right? So if you sent the text message and it's between you and someone else, it's easier to admit into court. Otherwise, it has to go through an authentication process where Blake has to tell the court how she got these text messages. She also has to prove the authenticity of if these have been altered or not. We already know there's going to be a debate on the authenticity of these text messages that she got through that subpoena, the banned sham subpoena. And motions in order to exclude evidence don't come up until way later on as we get closer to trial. And they have to file a motion in limine, which is a motion to exclude evidence. And then they get a chance to fight in court about that. So right now, authenticating text messages is a huge thing. Text messages also can be removed due to hearsay. And because Blake is actually not involved in any of the text messages that she provided to the court, there's going to be some big hurdles for her to climb. But with Blake's case kind of falling apart now because Taylor Swift is basically saying she wasn't involved. Taylor is saying, I don't want to be your friend anymore and I wish I didn't know you. And new details now coming out about Blake's own business that she had under the company Preserve, which had its own legal problems. It actually begs and sort of opens up even more questions, okay? Because Blake's side is suing Justin for a hostile work environment, right? And they're also arguing, Blake's side, that he, as a part of this alleged smear campaign, worked to bury stories that were negative to Justin, right? That were negative to Justin, that they didn't want out or were negative to the film, right? But what we learned in the Preserve case is that they buried information about legal action filed against a workplace, an employer. And according to the employees, part of their complaints and issues with the workplace had to do with a toxic and hostile work environment due to Eric Lively's involvement in a sexual relationship with one of the employees. There was a total of 8 employees, and he was involved in an inappropriate sexual relationship with one. And due to the relationship and the conduct of Eric Lively, they made a report to Blake about their concerns about Eric's inappropriate sexual relationship with an employee, to which she brushed off. If she happened to force the woman that was involved in a relationship with Eric, and if that woman brought forth a claim of sexual harassment due to that power imbalance or not being consensual or whatever, if she was forced to sign an NDA at this day and age today, due to the Speak Out Act, that NDA is null and void. So if that person did file a claim of sexual harassment and was bound by this NDA under the 2022 law, the Speak Out Act, that NDA is no longer enforceable, especially if it related to sexual harassment or sexual assault. Now, other parties in the workplace can actually be parties to sexual harassment if Eric was doing any sexual behavior with that woman in front of them. So if an employer is dating an employee and then he's kissing that employee in front of others in the workplace, it can create an uncomfortable and hostile environment, which could actually make it intimidating or offensive for people to be around, especially those that witness it. It can impact their ability to concentrate at work or even feel safe. And so if they feel uncomfortable and intimidated, or they're not okay with that information or that behavior, it could be either considered a hostile work environment or sexual harassment, because sexual harassment is actually not limited to physical conduct. It can be verbal conduct, or it can be creating a hostile work environment through suggestive behavior. So if he was being suggestive with that person in front of them, and any of these claims that she settled were related to sexual harassment, and she's binding them by that NDA, it's now null and void. So think about that. Blake Lively claims to be a voice for victims, and yet she actually silenced victims. victims of her hostile work environment that she created. And even though she wasn't in the same room because it was her business and she was the manager of that business and the CEO, anything that happens within that business, she is liable for that behavior. And when her business is sued for possible workplace hostility related to sexual harassment because of her brother, and then she binds them to an NDA, who's the one actually silencing victims? Is it Blake Lively or is it Justin Baldoni? The Speak Out Act is for victims of sexual assault or harassment, and it's so that an employer can't bind them into an NDA. It is not for Stephanie Jones to use and claim that she's allowed to speak out about a smear campaign that had nothing to do with her and didn't happen. The law isn't for Stephanie. She was the employer and she was the contractor that held the contract. So Stephanie and Blake's lives are falling apart. And finally, one last thing. Billy Bush released a new text message to expose Stephanie Jones. And so Stephanie Jones, in her recent motion to dismiss, filed this text message that was framing Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan as though they were going to war against Stephanie Jones. But the text message that he got from someone, whether it's Melissa Nathan or whoever, the full text message is not actually about Stephanie Jones. It's about whether or not they were going to release the statement on behalf of Blake and Ryan, that ridiculous, awful statement. And Melissa said, any word on a statement? And Jennifer Abel says, a big giant fuck you, no. Thank fucking God. We are going to war. I feel so alive. Ha, 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 ha. And then Melissa says, going out of JW with a bang. BF is in mediation, by the way. I asked his assistant. Okay, copy. So she's saying they're not going to have them release the statement. They're going to be going to war with Blake and Ryan because they know by not releasing that statement, they're going to get sued and they're ready. And then Melissa says that she's working with getting them in touch with Brian Friedman at that moment. So it has nothing to do with Stephanie Jones. It's just that they're leaving Stephanie Jones with a bang, and she's leaving Jones Works with a bang because her clients, Wayfair, are going to end up getting sued by Blake and Brian because they refused to release a statement. So, what are your thoughts about these latest developments? The withdrawal? Do you believe the sources that they got what they needed and they have the evidence that Blake did extort Taylor Swift and it's everything is on par because the information was provided and they cooperated? Or do you believe Blake that it was all about harassment and intimidation and he was shot down by the judge? And what do you think about Taylor saying, I can't believe I was ever friends with her and I wish I never met her? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. And just remember, they got what they needed. Blake Lively is a liar. Bye, besties.